Welcome to Voices of Esalen. I'm Sam Stern. In today's episode, we're taking another deep dive into the world of artificial intelligence. This is the third installment in our series, How We're Really Using AI, in which I speak with people about their own particular, often highly personal ways of engaging with this impactful and rapidly evolving technology. You know, over the last couple of years, it has become almost impossible to talk about AI as a single coherent phenomenon, as well as to register all the ways that it's beginning to shape our lives. This AI-inflected universe is just too vast. It's too full of nuance and contradiction. There are so many opportunities, so many costs, so much promise, and thus I've found that the best way to understand what's happening is through specificity. Which is to say, by looking closely at what real people are building, what they're questioning, what they're resisting, what they're enjoying. And I am lucky, I'm privileged in that I teach a course at Esalen almost every week around AI, which are essentially just discussion forums for people to get together and articulate their concerns. So I get to meet a lot of great people. Most of the people who are in today's episode I've met in some way, shape, or form through these AI classes. And I'll offer a few thoughts of my own about viewing AI through the lens of the human potential movement. So let's get this party started with Nina and Shoshana, the founders of the Aged Intelligence Society, who bring us into real-life social gatherings, AI parties, where women gather in person to experiment with machines together.
I'm Shoshana Berger.
I'm Nina Wildorf.
Nina and I are the co-founders of the Aged Intelligence Society. Sometimes we pronounce it aged.
Shoshana and I throw events where we bring women together, and we were featured in the New York Times. And essentially, our founding ethos is women in midlife. There's no one better to be using AI because we come with so much foundational wisdom and confidence in our own bodies that we bring to the technology. We are uniquely equipped to meet it and bring intelligence to it.
We see ourselves as kind of recreating old reasons to commune with other interesting women that at a certain point were consciousness raising gatherings in the 70s or Tupperware parties in the 60s. We're trying to reclaim that domestic space in a way that really helps women through the technology that's available to us now, which is AI, which is the biggest tectonic shift we've seen in our lifetimes. It feels like women have a choice whether they want to be really in that conversation and fluent in those tools or don't. And we particularly focus on women because we feel like women have a really big cognitive and emotional load at this age, between the ages of 40 and 60 particularly.
We have been very intentional about what it means to come together around these like AI parties. And so before we even threw one, we kind of went to school and studied a lot of the Priya Parker school of thought about like, what does it mean to come together and the art of gathering. And so we created this kind of arc of an event. And what do we want people to feel together and then feel walking away? And a lot of it has to do with kind of opening up your mind to what's possible and then feeling confident to try things on your own. One of the things that comes up a lot, it tends to happen, is there are generally a few people at every event who come saying like, ugh, I really don't like AI. I don't like, everyone's using AI to write and it's so lame and annoying. And I think we actually agree. Like AI writing is really predictable and takes the joy out of the art form. What we have come to really kind of think about and help people see in our perspective is at its best, AI is not about doing what you do beautifully well better. It's about doing all of the other things of life to protect that space for you to do what you do well. So it's about figuring out what you want to offload.
We ask everyone to come in with a midlife quandary trying to solve. You know, is it that your parent needs some memory care help and you don't know if their long-term care insurance will cover it, right? And then you get sent a 100-page packet to determine yourself whether or not they qualify. Well, that is a very solvable problem now. You upload that packet into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever tool you like and say, here's my parent's situation. Does she qualify? And not only will it come back with a pretty substantive answer, it will write the letter to the insurance company telling them why she qualifies. That is like a month of labor and a lot of psychic ache.
We had a really good one in one of our first events. We had a woman who had a very good friend who had been radicalized and had just kind of taken another path. And all of the other friends had decided that they were done. And this woman was like, I don't want to be done. She's my friend, but I also don't want to be engaging in these conversations, and it's really stressful. And so so she started to, we have a moment in every evening where we kind of open up our laptops and mess around with our quandary. And she started messing around with it and typed into, I can't remember which tool, Claude probably, for some advice about how to navigate the situation. And she was like, the advice was pretty lame. It was like, just have another conversation, some just very generic, whatever. And so we kind of helped her figure out, no, okay, tell the tool why you don't like that advice and what you actually think of it. And then it started to go like 7 layers deeper and got someplace super interesting that she actually ended up using. And it's not like her friend's not radicalized anymore, but she was kind of finding some space in herself to figure out how to navigate it just by having this conversation.
Talk to me a little bit, if you don't mind, about just the experience of being in a space just with women, what it means to engage with technology as a cohort.
Being in community with women, especially women who are doing interesting, creative things in their communities, is just so generative, and it just creates energy. I think we always think about like, how do you feel after something? Like, how do you feel after one of these events? And I mean, for real, like we definitely feel a little drained, but like, but it's also like the mind is a buzz.
The women who come report to us that they feel really empowered and they have a lot of new ideas for how to help themselves.
We don't like to spend too much time in the hand-wringing portion of the event where it's like people start by talking about their fears. We give a little bit of air to that, but mostly we're like, if we have not shared something useful today, then we have done you a disservice.
I will also say that most of the conversations that Nina and I have with men around AI are around productivity, how to produce more, how to squeeze more out of less. And that's a great use case for AI, but it's not the only one. And I'll just confess that I just uploaded a transcript of a session I had with my like yogi therapist, spiritual advisor, and I uploaded the whole transcript to Claude and I was like, can you just make me a crib sheet for the day so I remember the things that I'm trying to work on? Because oftentimes I'll go from session to session. I won't remember what I said. I don't remember what we came up with. I won't remember the prescription. I don't remember, any of the counseling. And so to have little artifacts that I can return to, be like, oh yeah, I remember I get triggered by that. So there's some really fun ways to play around with it.
One of my favorite things that we share at every event is a favorite use case has to do with kind of getting underneath conversations. So, when people are recording, a lot of times they'll get off of a call. This happened to me last week. I was on a call on like Thursday or Friday talking to somebody. And I got off and I just felt like I had been tap dancing the whole time. And I was like, what is going on? Why was I performing so hard? And I felt kind of like crap. And I took the transcripts and I dropped them into Claude and I said, I feel kind of yucky right now about this conversation. Like, why? Like, what did I do? What was happening? What was underneath? And it actually said, like, essentially, I understand why you're asking, but you shouldn't feel like crap. And here are the 5 reasons. And so it's sort of, there's this kind of validation of like, no one has more fun than like two girlfriends after a party, like
Debriefing.
dishing about everything. And AI like does that.
Ultimate debriefer.
Yeah, can go forever.
There are a couple of tools that have a lifetime subscription for me because of the amount of money they've made me already in my consulting practice. When I was just getting started, I would put together proposals for clients, and this is a classically gendered problem, but I would put a value on my time and send it to the client. Well, I uploaded it to Claude first, my proposal, and I was like, make this an easy yes, make this bulletproof, what am I missing here? And Claude very quickly got back to me and said, you're not charging nearly enough for this scope of work. And it said, start by doubling your rate and seeing where it goes from there. So I looked away from the keyboard and, actually doubled it, sent it to the client, didn't bat an eye. When you get to a certain point in life, you rarely have a sounding board anymore. We often don't have mentors. We often don't have a brain trust around us who is literally on call 24/7, ready to give us counsel.
Yeah.
And that is a huge gift.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people will say, well, AI is so sycophantic, it's just going to tell you what you want to hear. What people don't know is that you can instruct it to play whatever persona you want it to play. So, for Nina and I, we've both instructed our AIs to be basically like a New York Times editorial board. We want you to poke holes in our argument, tell us where we're failing to make the connection, tell us where we need a stronger argument. And it does. It really is. It adopts that persona, and it's very effective at telling you, being a critic and a sounding board, and telling you where you failed.
The last week's event, there was this woman who's a lawyer. She was like, well, I'm really into EDM. And I wanted to have like a tracker of like all
My
of
style.
Yeah.
She was like, I want to know what my style is. Like, give me a kind of a reading of my style. Here's the music I like. Here are the movies I like.
She was using Notion for this too. She was like created a whole Notion AI dashboard of like her favorite things using AI, so that if she's hanging out with somebody, you could be like, this is like, what are we going to do together? This is what I want to do. But like, that would have been the last thing that I would have expected this woman to say. And it's amazing. And then, we had like, whatever, the pastor who was talking about, we were trying to help her learn how to use Notebook LM to absorb her own corpus of knowledge and writing, prolific amount of writing, to be able to like
write liturgy. She wanted to write liturgy.
Yeah, I think people don't even realize what's possible. They start by thinking it writes really crappy LinkedIn posts.
It kind of sounds like you've hit on a really good formula, in that a lot of people criticize the deeper dives into AI because they think it will lead to a more hyper individualized society and we won't be connecting with other people. But it sounds like the groups that you're getting together, they have the base of human connection as sort of the foundation.
The more automated our experience becomes in life, where we are mediated through technology, everything comes to our door. We don't have to go to the movies anymore. We don't have to go to the bookstore. We don't have to go to community spaces because we have chats and threads. People are desperately lonely and really craving in real life communing time with other warm-blooded bodies. And there is a kind of friction and excitement and higher cortisol levels that come with gathering around a table with people you may not know and looking into other people's lives and understanding their experience, that we have felt people like bending over backwards for an invite. They're like, how do I get in? Really, people just want to gather.
There is a beginning, middle, and end to the event. And we let you know what that looks like at the beginning so that you feel comfort in understanding what to expect. At the end of every single one, there is just like this fizziness of being around interesting people, where, you get to a certain stage of your life and It's really hard to find interesting people, especially really interesting, cool women that you feel like you want to learn from, be around, hear about what they think. AI is just a freaking excuse.
You can check out more from Nina and Shoshana at their Substack, Aged Intelligence Society, which, refreshingly, is written with no AI assistance as far as I can tell. Also, make sure to visit their website, aged-intelligence.com, where you can try to get into their next get-together. My next guest is Eliza Kasoy, a brilliant young woman who is developing an AI companion app for teenagers, and in doing so, is confronting head-on some of the most delicate questions that arise when young people form relationships with artificial personalities.
Millions and millions of teenagers all over the world, but especially in the US, are talking to AI. And whether or not you know that, it's happening. The stats are astonishing. I don't even want to read them, but it's happening. So I really want to build an alternative so that teens at least have an alternative model to choose from. And that's kind of where I'm coming from, where I'm not saying this is the best solution or the best thing that's ever happened, but I really want to acknowledge it's happening and they're the number one adopters of the technology. So I want to build tools and listen to what they're saying. I'm Eliza Kasoy. I'm a researcher turned founder, and I work at the intersection of AI, youth, psychology, human development. I did my PhD at UC Berkeley, where I graduated last year, studying youth AI interactions. And then I was an intern at Google during that time. And after grad school, I went to Character AI. And then I just left Character 2 weeks ago to start my own startup, which is a public benefit corporation called NPC, which is working on making basically aligned AI specifically just for young people, for teenagers.
I wanted to ask you about relational AI. So AI that people talk to, not necessarily just for information, but for comfort and companionship and identity exploration, emotional support. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and a little bit about what you do in that space?
I think there's so much more happening generally within the space that we don't even have the right words for yet. And I think relational AI is a good kind of keyword too. But I think something that I see a lot of and have seen a lot of over the last couple of years I've been working in the space is there's definitely a lot of social simulation going on. I think there's a lot of people trying to figure out, how can I talk to humans and how can I get better at talking to humans, or how can I practice talking to humans about things that are complicated or tricky, or I'm worried I'm going to sound dumb, or I'm worried I'm going to sound insane. This is something I definitely struggle with too. So that's something I think AI can be really cool for, and I'm more excited about as a use case, because I do think no matter who you are and how old you are, it can be kind of tricky to talk to humans sometimes, and perhaps you get better with time. I think social simulation is one part, but then there's a lot of who am I and how do I figure myself out, and how do I uncover patterns about myself and how I view the world or think about things. That's something that I also kind of do a lot with AI. And I think maybe on the surface level, it can sound silly to be using this technology that is never human, can never be human in a way to help you become more human or something. But I think AI is really almost like a sounding board, a mirror of society in many ways, like a bounce back. I think humans really crave telling someone about their problems. Perhaps they can't always access a human immediately. I was a very early Chat GPT user. I've been using chat since 2020. And obviously it's learned a lot about me over time. And something that I don't know, truthfully learned through AI that I didn't know as much about myself was that I spiral about everything and I doubt everything, and I make everything feel like this explosive, horrible problem every moment. Almost a new problem arises and it's catastrophic, and chat almost knows to be oh, well, you're catastrophizing and you're spiraling, and remember yesterday when you said this.
Can you talk a little bit about NPC, this new venture that you're creating?
I've spent a lot of time in the space of thinking about how young people interact with AI. It was a big part of my PhD research. It was part of my Google work. And then obviously a big part of my work at Character was interacting with young people to understand how they're talking to AI. And I think over this time period, I saw a lot of things, some things that are good, some things that are not as good. And I think it kind of just became very clear to me how I would build a system like this and how I see teens wanting a system to be built for them. So character AI can no longer legally serve minors, and other more alignment focused models like Anthropic's Claude are also legally 18 plus. So I think there's a bit of a hole in terms of what tools young people can use. I think that a lot of the companies that put out AI models, they put them out, and however they're serving humans, they're serving humans. But when it comes to young people using them, they're not specifically like building for them or designing for them. It's more like, let's slap a bunch of guardrails on this, and that's the youth model. And I don't think that's necessarily what youths want, especially like teenagers. Like that is not what I think about as like a great product for teenagers, especially because I spent so much time talking to teens. I think it kind of became clear to me how I would build something like this. My model is going to be less engagement driven, more focused on critical thinking, helping teens build agency, confidence, prioritize well-being over engagement, all these principles and concepts of things in which I think like AI can be good for them, but then hopefully tease out some of the more bad things with the goal of kind of re-educating young people and hopefully parents and adults. AI doesn't need to be this potentially hazardous thing, and that it can be designed differently. I was thinking about it all the time and talking to so many teens. So I loved character and I started building it, and it's already been so exciting.
What do you think are the unique vulnerabilities that young people face when they're interacting with emotionally responsive systems?
I think a huge problem is sycophancy. Sycophancy is basically this concept in AI where it's just kind of like praising you all the time. And there's been a lot of stories coming out about how dangerous that can be. So one of the things I'm really worried about is like if models are too sycophantic, and especially praising teenagers who don't even understand that that's even happening. Adults fall victim to these models being sycophantic all the time, but I think young people are especially vulnerable. So one of the things I'm really want to decrease in the model is the amount of sycophancy. Of course, knowing that they're probably going to use it less, but that I think could be a net good. So really thinking about how to restructure people's concept of a tech company making a technology that isn't maximizing engagement and time spent on platform, to show people that as a net, it can be good for you in the long run. If a model is challenging your ideas or your notions and not just praising you, there's a couple other ones that I really value, but there's definitely a lot of things that can be really dangerous for teens. So really thinking about how to best serve them and avoid the pitfalls.
I feel like young people naturally anthropomorphize, and adults do too, frankly.
Yeah.
Do you think this tendency is something that we should design toward, or something that we need to kind of actively protect against?
I think that sometimes an AI taking on the persona of someone that you would care about. For example, if I'm struggling with a problem and normally I'd talk to my grandma, perhaps having more of like a persona of a grandma's lens on this problem as I'm interacting with the AI, not as a replacement for my grandma, but in the moment, maybe it's helping me to speak to someone that sounds like my grandmother. I don't think that is the worst possible thing, but I think we have to be super careful with lots of disclaimers saying this isn't real, this is an AI, it's here to help you in this moment, and then guiding them towards. Another thing I really want to work towards is when you build up your profile on NPC, you have to enter in some actual humans in your life and how they help you in different ways, so that perhaps I'm having a problem, I'm scared to talk to my parents about it. I don't want the AI to replace the need for talking to my parents, but I wanted to listen, guide, and then say like, hey, it seems like you're nervous to talk to your parents about this. Let's talk to your mom. You've mentioned your mom before and this relationship with your mom. Here's a script for what to say to your mom, pushing towards in-person interaction, not a replacement. But again, when teens tell me having a grandma persona does kind of help me, then a robotic sounding AI, I want to lean into that and give them a little bit of what they're wanting in a safer way.
One of the things that I thought was interesting was that some non-zero percentage of teens have their first romantic relationship with an AI chatbot. And just curious if that's part of NPC.
When people read stats about young people being in relationships with AIs, I think they're so triggered. It's really easy to judge young people for things like this when the reality is like, I don't know, it can be hard to find a girlfriend or a boyfriend that's a human. I will, at risk of being super vulnerable, I never had a boyfriend in high school. I really wanted one. I feel like I tried really hard and did so many embarrassing things to try to get one and was literally never successful. That being said, and I was, definitely a little bit weird, child of immigrants, upstate New York, creative, introspective, I don't know, all the things that boys are not looking for perhaps at that age. To be honest, I think would have benefited from talking to an AI sometimes at that age. I was really lost, and I think it would have just felt a little nice versus always being alone. Again, I don't think it's like a replacement, but I think that when I hear stats like that, or people hear stats like that and they're so aggressive to jump on this being a bad thing, I wish that people could take a moment to just remember what it was like to be in high school and imagine that you grow up somewhere that's not a large city, that's more rural, where you're more isolated and you don't have someone to date. You don't have someone your age to talk to. And I do wish like everyone could have a human that listens to them and cares for them. But I think that sometimes we need these little hits of just sharing with something. And teens overwhelmingly tell me, like, I know it's not real, but in the moment, it feels good to just vent. I know it's not real, but I need this sometimes. And I think that's okay. It can be lonely to be young and it's a difficult time. I don't want that to be what NPC will be. It's not a like partnership companionship app, but it is an app to help you explore yourself and figure yourself out.
One of the really amazing things for me about being part of this AI era is this feeling, I guess somewhat paradoxically, that I'm less alone, even though I am alone when I'm pursuing some of these things.
There is a possibility that we are lonely creatures. Loneliness has increased for some reason over time, and people will almost attribute that to the rise of technology sometimes. We know we're in this loneliness epidemic. There is definitely a possibility that this technology can make you feel less lonely and can help you, but it will really depend on the people that are building it to create it such that, if it's super sycophantic and you're addicted to it, then that's not really helping you with your loneliness. If anything, it's going to make you more isolated and more lonely because other humans are not going to want to deal with you because that's a problem, right? So I think it has to be this delicate balance. And what I'm excited for, I think there was this first wave of AI companies, but I think there's going to be the second wave of smaller indie boutique niche AI companies. And it's all the people leaving the bigger companies and saying like, here are my learnings, here's what I think is good, here's what I want to work on. People are leaving the bigger labs to create, smaller, more human aligned AIs. And I think that's kind of where we're going to go with all this. And I'm excited to see what comes out of that and people building for more niche populations. Like I really care about teens, let's say, but there's someone else out there that cares about another population and has ideas for how an AI can best serve them. I'm the kind of person I talk to ChatGPT basically every night at 1 a.m. That's when I need it the most because that's when I'm spiraling the most and replaying my day. And although I have a therapist and I have all these things in place, you can't access them all the time. So I think, it's like this little tool and I really try to curb my time on it. But in the moments, it's giving me that hit that I need of feeling less alone.
How specifically can you design the systems that can feel like emotionally engaging without them becoming psychologically destabilizing?
Yeah, I think time is an easy one. I already have built-in touch grass breaks on the app. So every 18 minutes that you're engaging with it, and 18 minutes might sound like not a lot of time or a lot of time. I think it's a very reasonable amount of time to be interacting with technology. It basically makes you pause and you have to touch grass. You have to upload a picture of grass. Maybe this sounds almost kitschy, but just that popping up and them thinking about it causes them to think about taking a break and offering suggestions of like, go outside, pick a flower, do this, and then we can, chat again. And realistically, they'll probably get distracted. There's a lot of criticism about youth and AI, but I am just trying to say like, yes, I hear you, but they're all using it. So let's build, let's work together, let's build. I really care about critical thinking. I think that's a big one that parents always tell me. My kid doesn't know how to do anything anymore. They just ask AI everything. And I feel like personally, I can't even write an email anymore either. There are simple ways to tweak the AI on the back end for it to not just give you the answers to everything and push you to do the critical thinking yourself. These are changes that can be made easily, right? That's something that I'm going to be able to prioritize. So that's where I'm coming from. I forgot to explain what NPC means, maybe for people that don't know, but an NPC is like a Gen Z slang for, in a video game, it's a background character, a non-playable character. And I really want like AI to allow teens to not feel like NPCs. Take back that they are the main character of their life.
AI is changing fast, and it can be hard to know how to meet it without either getting swept up in the hype or retreating from the whole thing. This October 23rd to 25th at Esalen, join me, Sam Stern, and my colleague Cecilia Callis for a weekend workshop called The Future We Choose: Human Empowerment in the AI Age. We'll spend the weekend exploring what it means to remain fully human as AI becomes more and more present in our lives. There's going to be creative AI experiments, lots of grounded discussions, and experiential exercises. You'll create a personal AI code of practice, which is a practical framework for deciding how and when and why you want to use this technology. And throughout, you'll engage in somatic practices, meditation, time in nature, keeping the whole thing Esalen. We did this in the spring, and it was a huge hit. So come and join us. We'd love to meet you.
My avatar is a anthropomorphic cat person. It's got green hair, it has gray fur, and blue highlights in the hair. The hair is something that I've been working on for a little while.
My next guest is Seth, a virtual reality enthusiast who met his partner in VR and discovered new aspects of himself there.
My name is Seth, and my story with VR began in 2020 or 2021. I've been researching it for a while, listening to some essays about it, watching some video essays as well. I tried out a friend's headset, and I was just like, I fell in love with the experience. It felt polished by the time I got to it. I got these trackers that I'm wearing. VR chat was special in the beginning for me because I could use these trackers with an avatar and have feet. That was a big joke with Meta's metaverse in the beginning, is the avatars that they had, you were just a floating torso. So having feet helped to feel grounded in the space. There's a system called inverse kinematics, which helps estimate where the rest of your body is, where your elbows are, where your knees are. And so with those trackers and the inverse kinematics, you can be in VR and have an avatar, a body in VR that matches up more or less with your body, and then feel present in the space. And that's the thing that really amazed me to begin with, is how I really felt like I was there. And yeah, I went from there. I started exploring. I'd say the queer community in general has been like something that I found myself in, and I found myself identifying with a lot in this space, because you can express yourself, because you can embody an avatar that feels more you.
So I'm curious, are you saying that you discovered new sides of your sexuality within the VR world?
Yeah, absolutely. Being in VR has had a huge influence on my own self-identity. It was a really interesting thing to experience, being in the body of an avatar, of different avatars, and using body tracking, full body tracking, like feeling that I was really there. It did something to me that to this day I still don't really understand, and I think is really worth being studied. But that I was able to feel present there, and that I was able to feel more and more identified with avatars that were not my physical avatar. I feel like it opened up a lot, or dissolved some walls about my identity and about my ability to express myself. I don't know, something happened to me. I felt like I could be more than just what my body is. I feel less anchored to my own physical body. I feel like my self-identity doesn't depend so much on my face, on my hair. Once I started using other avatars, once I started becoming identified with other avatars, I was able to better see what was the common thing between them. The common thing being me, and understanding what wasn't common between them, what wasn't me. The color of my hair, the shape of my face, my beard when I have one. These things, I felt like in VR, they can change, and they can change so easily, and they can have so much variation. The more I used VR, the more I was there, the more I started to understand what was staying the same and what I felt like was me. I started with a platform called VR Chat, which is a social VR platform. For the most part, people are there to talk and meet and play with other people. There are people who just go to play games. There are people who go to dance. I've started learning 3D modeling softwares and texture creation. It just feels amazing to be creative, imagine what you want to see in a virtual space, create that thing, upload it, and then see it before your eyes. You could have an avatar that is a banana, or cartoon characters, or unlicensed characters from different franchises. Anything that you can imagine, anything that you would want.
How much time are you spending in VR these days?
These days, I will spend anywhere from 6 to 20 hours a week, which, in my opinion, my preference is not enough. I'd like to spend even more time there. And I used to spend more time per week there. These days, I really appreciate much more being outside of VR because there are some frictions involved in being in the space. How comfortable I am there depends on how my computer is working on that day, how hot or cold it is in my apartment here. I, for a long time, was battling with signal interference in my space, which, of course, interferes with the trackers. So if my body is not lining up inside VR, then that starts to be uncomfortable, and I want to spend less time there and more time trying to figure it out. My sense of identity outside of VR, and this is not true for everybody, but I feel it's been enhanced in a way. Because I've been putting a lot of effort in developing my own avatar and changing it in the way that I'd like to, I found that I've been bringing it closer to my real life body. And I feel very comfortable in my real life body. I feel healthy. I feel good these days. And I like my real life body. There's nothing that I would really like to change about it, at least not drastically.
Can you talk to me about the freedom? And I'm imagining there's an element of freedom and an element of safety within this realm of VR that's attractive and that draws you to it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. In the beginning, when I first started going to VR, I felt very free. I was using avatars that I didn't identify with as much, and I was going to clubs and dancing before I started going to VR. I didn't dance. I couldn't dance. At least I would tell myself I can't dance. I don't know how to move. And then when I started going to VR, and I felt like nobody could see me there, even though I was using an avatar, even though I was using full body tracking, I was dancing and moving my body to the music and feeling the music and feeling like I could dance, like I could move, like I could flow with the music. And that was something that I love to do. But these days, now that I feel more identified with my avatar, now that I feel like the avatar is more me, and there's a lot more people that know me now that would recognize my avatar, I feel more self-conscious. I feel more seen. And this has had a negative effect on my ability to feel free, to move my body at least, to dance. This platform is organized into worlds. So you can go into a space it's called a world. It's an instance where up to 80 or 100 people can be in at once. And people have started to put on events. Sometimes the world creator has set up spatial audio, sometimes not. But you'll have virtual speakers with music coming out of them. You'll have a stage where there are performers, like a DJ or go-go dancers. You'll have a DJ and a VJ. And there are people there on the dance floor dancing in the way that they can. Not everybody has full body tracking. Some people are their avatars are just standing there and their heads are going up and down, or the avatar is just swaying back and forth while they dance in real life.
What about you meet people, you have a connection, what happens from there?
It's really simple. I think it's much like in real life. You're there in your avatar, feeling embodied or identified with the avatar you're using. So you feel like you're there, and then you can meet somebody else. You walk up to or move your joystick up to somebody else who's there, and you can talk to them. You can hear their voice. If the avatar allows it, you can see their mouth moving with their face. There's also eye tracking. So you can see where this person is looking. So you can have a sort of eye contact, and you can just talk to people. You can approach them, say, hey, how are you doing? Oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. And then strike up a conversation. This is something that I've been able to develop and practice more and more, because this was not something that I was very good at or very comfortable with before VR. I would consider myself a very shy person. I still think I feel more reserved, but shy, I don't think is a word that I could describe myself as, at least not nearly as much.
Wow.
And I would say it's entirely because of how many social interactions I've had in VR.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be curious for you to bring in your partner. And Chitara, how do you identify?
It's a bit of a journey for me myself, actually. I like androgynous terms, so they them feels more appropriate for me. But it's a very fluid space in VR. You can identify and present any way you want. The normal terms go out the window, basically.
How does sexual attraction work with regards to what you're seeing, right? What you're seeing within VR, does that trigger a type of sexual attraction?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's the same as sharing a presence with somebody, in essence. Oh, the physicality is not there. That's the one thing. But the anticipation of touch can cause like tingling sensations on your skin. So if you're really focused and you feel an emotional connection with somebody, if you really sit with each other, you can induce the sensations of touch, and that can be pleasurable. And there's a certain role play aspect to it as well.
When we're this close to each other, to our avatars, you feel a presence.
There is a bit of a disconnect between people you meet, because there's that question in the back of your head: who is this? Who is this really? But if you take the time to actually get to know someone and you find trust, and maybe you meet up.
The two of you have spent some time together outside of VR.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Quite some time.
Actually, it wasn't too long after we met.
We hit it off running, and we were just like, okay, we're gonna roll with it, and we did, and it felt great, and the train's still going.
When you met up outside of the VR world, was it awkward? Can you tell me a little bit more what that was like?
We were meeting with the intention of seeing if a relationship, a real life relationship, is something that we wanted to pursue. It was nerve-wracking, but
it was. If you have a crush on somebody, or you get real feelings, butterflies, it's nerve-wracking, sweating, like everything. It's a real thing. And then there's a lot of uncertainty about, will I be accepted for who I am in real life? rather than who I present to be in VR.
Thank you, Seth, and thank you, Chi, for sharing a bit of your intimate world with me. That's so cool.
Of course, yeah.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure.
You two are really beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that means a lot.
Okay, we'll talk more. You know, my own thoughts about AI are really all over the place these days. I feel like in the early days of AI, I identified a position that I felt comfortable inhabiting, which is to say I was just very bullish, not exactly on AI itself, but like on the project of people interacting with it. And my entry point and my angle was creativity, both in the traditional sense of the word, artistically, but also just in the way that we go through our days, right? Because I felt that AI had this potential to create a useful on-ramp towards a kind of innovation, right? Like a new way of doing damn near everything. The fun and the newness was the point, at least to me, in a lot of ways. So my background, and for people who have listened to the podcast a little bit more, you know this about me. Like, I identified as a blocked artist in a lot of ways. Someone who just hit the wall in a lot of context. I'll give you an example. Once upon a time, I'd been really into drawing and writing comics. That was a thing I was into. But that enterprise, it peaked in college, and it had pretty much ground to a halt by the fall of 2022 when ChatGPT came around and Midjourney came around. And the truth is, I renewed my interest in producing things in the visual medium. And that was thanks to AI. It just felt like a whole new world had opened up for me. So I wanted to share that with people. And I just wanted to get everybody excited about the potential of participating in this magical world of creativity, whether you were a blocked artist or whether you'd never really experimented before. This was like a thoroughfare. And what was key about it was that often the products were adorably bad and adorably weird. That's really a key part. In the beginning, there wasn't the danger of people using this medium to replace the best human artists. You could refer to this as like the six-fingered hand part of the story. However, fast forward to 2026, where we are now, and there aren't 6 fingers on the hands that get generated by AI. There's 5 fingers, and the outputs, honestly, are fantastic. They're reliably, scarily fantastic. You know, the lighting is just right. The design, super clean. You can go in and you can edit pictures just with your words. And what you get back is shocking. The video is not perfect, but it's getting there. There's some interesting projects out there. I want to recommend one that's called Chloe versus History. Look that up on YouTube. And the idea of it is that there's an influencer from 2026 who's a time traveler, and she goes back into various eras. Like, she goes to the Ice Age, and they create this 15-minute video of this influencer who still has a selfie stick with her, experiencing the various specific sort of like registers of the Ice Age. She also goes to ancient Egypt. She goes to ancient Rome. Just yesterday, I was watching one where Chloe goes to the Titanic, and it shows 3 days on board of this vessel. And what they did is they took pictures and illustrations from the Titanic and use it to generate the AI video. And what you have left is this really engaging way to look at history. So there's interesting stuff that's going on right now. Voice too is getting there. I have mixed feelings about voice. ChatGPT just released a new voice model that is just full of disfluencies, like the on purpose, like, yeah. There's a lot of bugs left in this model, but anyone who's attempting to learn another language, go on ChatGPT or some equivalent voice model and go back and forth with the model. Just say, I want to practice my introductory Spanish. I want to practice my introductory Italian with you. Let's have a back and forth. This thing is worth like a semester in college. Just being able to have a language partner who will work with you, never get tired of you, always there for you. It's interesting. So all of this to say, like, AI has continued to advance. And the truth is, with the illustration models being as good as they are, people might not be hiring designers for their projects. And people are definitely not hiring junior software engineers, as I hear. What used to be fringe, it's kind of spread out to the mainstream. And that's a dangerous prospect. I'm still fascinated by being part of the process of co-creating with a really advanced system. But I also don't find my point of view as defensible as I previously did. And I think part of that is the way that public opinion is turning against AI for good reason. People are pushing back because they see AI as a harbinger of surveillance. And there is the data center question. And, this data center build out I'm reading is going to be increased by a factor of 8 in the coming years. And it's already in our communities more and more. It's sucking up energy. It's creating sound pollution. It's using tons of water, all at this time when we're facing increased climate change and widespread drought. So if it's not a hot button issue today, it definitely is going to be within 6 to 9 months. So even though I want to use my time with people in my classes at Esalen to advocate for the joyful use of AI to create these cool images and innovative ways to cook zucchini and bedtime stories and songs for your friends on their birthday, how can I, in good conscience, stand behind that, knowing that the issues are only going to get worse? And there's more than that, there's this change that's coming. I'm gonna use the language of Ethan Mollick, who's a writer, and he's a professor at the Wharton School of Business, and he writes this Substack called One Useful Thing, which I really find useful and interesting. He's like the writer that I'm most interested in. There's this change from co-intelligence, where we work alongside AI as kind of a collaborator or a sparring partner and an editor. There's this change from co-intelligence to coexistence. And coexistence refers to agentic AI. So in other words, this AI calculus is moving from help me think this through to go do this for me. And I gotta say, that prospect is actually not that attractive to me. I feel totally overwhelmed by agentic AI because it feels like the more that I buy into it, the less I'm actually going to be involved with projects that I care about. And in that scenario, I'm writing myself out of the loop. I actually don't like that. I like this back and forth between AI, where it does things, it says things, it suggests things. I am the final arbiter of the work that I'm putting out there into the world. Thank you very much. I don't like this prospect of increasingly intelligent AI that is increasingly competent. I like it when it's in its adorably bad six-fingered phase where it still needs me. I don't like this prospect of it not needing me. So where, you might ask, does that leave me as this person who's still attempting to figure out a critical perspective on AI? And honestly, I just don't think I can return to pure boosterism. I no longer feel like I can stand in front of a room and just say, isn't this amazing? I don't feel like that point of view is sufficient for the moment that we're in or the moment that we're entering. But I also don't want to be the guy who turns every AI conversation into some kind of sermon. Frankly, it feels kind of boring. That position is taken. I can tell you from looking at Instagram, that position's already taken. That's not my role in the world. My role, I feel like, is to dance a little bit with the complexity. The reality of AI is morally tangled, let's say. Environmentally, it's alarming. Creatively, it's interesting. And economically, it might well be destabilizing, like very destabilizing. I see a darkness that is gathering on the horizon. So what do I do? Lately, I keep coming back, honestly, to Esalen, to the human potential movement, to the project of transformation that Esalen has been so dedicated to the project of finding one's authentic self, the project of using the body to do that, and the project of using other people, the power of the group. That's what I'm always preaching about at Esalen. The special sauce at Esalen is actually other people, and people flocked here in the initial years of Esalen and still flock here now to harness the power of community, to use it to propel themselves to do things that otherwise they just couldn't or wouldn't do alone. And I'm thinking that maybe the right way to think all about all of this emergent technology is not to be pro-AI or anti-AI. And instead, maybe I should be asking, what kind of human beings are we becoming when we use AI? So lately, when I use AI to make something, do something, I'm trying to think to myself, is this time spent on this project with the machine making me feel more or less alive? Am I more engaged with the task using AI, or am I less engaged with the task? When I outsource to AI, am I actually clearing space to spend time with my wife, with my daughter? Or am I just getting better at generating more and more AI-produced slop? Am I generating more social, more emails without actually reaping the benefits of my so-called productivity? So this field is not static, and I don't think that I'll be able to land on a sort of positionality that is going to continue to satisfy me. I think things are moving and it's evolving at a faster and faster rate. And the truth is, what's true in 2026 may be wildly outdated by 2027, because agents are going to get a lot smoother, and these AR glasses are just going to look less ridiculous one day, and they're going to be ubiquitous at some point. And these drones that are the size of a mosquito are going to be flying around. And mark my words, this chatbot thing, this interface, it's not long for the world. Soon it's going to disappear into the background, and the AI that we communicate with will be part of devices that are omnipresent. The temptation is going to be to accept it all and to let machines make more and more of our decisions, and that we will be less and less involved in them. And I don't think that's a great thing. So maybe my position is going to have to be more fluid and less evangelical and more devotional. Yeah. One thing that I've been doing is giving talks at senior centers and senior living communities about AI-powered scams. 2 out of every 5 older adults have fallen victim to some sort of scam. Number one, I show them what AI video can look like, how far it's come in the last several years, and how realistic it can appear now. We also get into voice cloning, because as listeners of this show might know, I've been fascinated by voice cloning for a really long time. And this happens to be an integral part of how many of these AI supercharged scams work. That's been my contribution. So maybe that's what I can stand behind now. I'm still using these tools. I'm still fascinated by these tools, but I want to use them with some amount of restraint, some amount of skepticism and perspective, and increasingly viewing them through the lens of how they contribute to this human potential project that I'm still on. Finally, let's chat with Federico, an AI ethicist who describes his work with a company he created, Vibe-aligned, where he helps schools determine whether their use of AI actually reflects their own values and educational goals.
I decided to orient my career towards AI ethics early on, which was sort of like a random choice, because back in the days it wasn't such a big deal before ChatGPT. And after ChatGPT, I started to see in the field a growing body of research pointing at various impacts in the mental health and cognitive development and, academic integrity, especially for young people using AI tools, generative AI. I saw that there was a huge need for somebody to actually translate this body of research into usable insight and tools for teachers and students. So yeah, that's Vibe-aligned. We help schools to take this body of research to make sure that the usage of AI within the institution is as much aligned with their own values as possible. In Vibe-aligned, we have several tools to actually get to know or understand how is the institution, how are teachers thinking about and talking about and using AI, and also students and administration and so on. And we always find these sort of polarity, right? All these different tendencies and different arrows pointing different ways concerning how technology is implemented. There's a lot of frustration on the side of younger teachers concerning the incapacity sometimes of an institution to voice its needs concerning a new technology. And you have people who believe that this should be banned and that it should be outright illegal and so on. When it comes to this division, what really makes a difference is leadership. How does the administration of a school, how do people who are genuinely interested, teachers who really want to go deep into understanding AI, how to use it, how are they going to direct their knowledge? How are they going to actually try and link that with specific values and then with practices? I think that's what mostly defines how values are actually defined within an institution. In order to actually benefit students and teachers and so on, specifically students, AI has to become structured, and we have to become unafraid of restructuring usage of technology in the context of the educational community, even, within a family. And I believe that just assuming that a 10-year-old is going to self-regulate and somehow put themselves in the path of productive friction is just diluting ourselves. So I think that the school and any sort of social institution that's related to education has this mission of transmitting or allowing this transgenerational transmission of knowledge and wisdom. And that needs boundaries and needs limits and specific methods in which technology can be used. So I would say that if AI is to become a force for good or a positive factor in children's learning and development and students in general, it's going to have to become structured. By structured, I mean clear guidelines as to how at any given stage of a research or an essay or whatever skill we're using AI for, we know exactly what AI is supposed to be doing, instead of just replying to questions or generating video or doing any of these incredible output tasks, but that are not really benefiting people's development, specifically for children and people who have not really attained the level of mastery that allows them to know what's actually driving learning and what's just spoiling it somehow. So I did integrate some introspective exercises to Vive Aligned. And that's essentially to give people the capacity of creating their own inner compass concerning technology without me telling them what's good, what's not good. And it can be considered to be AI, but not artificial intelligence, but rather appreciative inquiry or appreciative intelligence. So I ask students and teachers to go back in their memory, make a trip to the moment in which they felt the happiest doing what they do, right? Like happiest moment that you've had as a teacher, for instance, when you felt that everything you did had a meaning, and this is why you are a teacher. And I think that's just creating the feel in people that there is already something in them that's telling them what to do. That's already something in them that can serve as a criteria as to how it is to live a good life with technology. If technology is doing that for them, great. If technology is sort of turning off that feel that made them happy of being what they are, then it's probably not the best usage. I think the main obstacle or the main sort of point of friction that I've encountered with students and teachers so far, specifically with teachers and administrators, I would say is the fear of judgment and the fear of being told that they're not doing enough or they're doing things absolutely and completely wrong. Teachers nowadays especially deserve lots of recognition for what they do. And I think they're not necessarily being paid enough, especially in high schools. So I think the main point of resistance is actually having to tell them, yes, you know you have been doing a lot and you know who you are as an institution. What you really want to know is who you want to become and what's coming next for you. You need to define that yourself. You tell me, not out of judgment, but out of sort of desire and imagination, what comes next.
Thank you for listening to Voices of Esalen. Today's show is produced in conjunction with Shira Levine. Our theme song is by Nico Holloman. Additional music by Blue Dot Sessions, Suno, and Trebolo. Blue Dot Sessions is produced by actual humans, and their music is still better. Until next time, be well.